Hi, Recap Corner here. Today, we're going to be doing a big breakdown to discuss our film The Equalizer. Spoilers ahead. Be prepared. Grab your popcorn, sit back, and get ready for a wild ride. Robert McCall gets up early every day to go to work at Home Mart, where he is respected and liked by his coworkers. One day, while he is having lunch with his friend Rarfi, McCall hears him crunching on something. He discovers that Rarfi has put chips in his sandwich even though he is trying to lose weight for an upcoming security guard test. McCall reminds him of this. Every night, McCall visits a diner where he brings a book. Currently, he is reading The Old Man and the Sea. One night, a young girl in the diner, Chloe Grace Moritz, inquires about the man in the book and whether he has caught the fish yet. McCall replies that he has not. After finishing her pie, the girl hails a cab and leaves. McCall's co-workers ask him what he did before joining the team. He jokingly replies that he used to be a backing dancer for Gladys Knight and the Pips, doing a little dance for them. McCall returns to the same diner that night and notices the same woman. She notices he has a different book and a limo pulls up across the street. She then receives a phone call from her pimp, Slavy David Moynier, who informs her she has a customer, the person in the limo. The woman does not want to go, as the person is repugnant. The vehicle door opens to reveal a large man inside, expecting her. Unwillingly, she exits the diner and enters the car. The following night, McCall encountered the girl in the diner. He noticed a bruise on her face and offered her a donut he had brought from work. She sat with him at his table and identified herself as Terry, though her actual name was Alina. She gave him a CD that she had recorded of her singing. Afterward, they went for a walk before a car stopped nearby. It was Slavy and his driver, Tevi Alex Viadov. Slavy got out, slapped Alina, and then walked up to McCall. He presented him with a card for his business, requesting more girls. Tevi had a gun, which prompted McCall to take a step back. McCall visits the diner once more and discovers from the manager that Alina has been admitted to the ICU due to a brutal beating. When he arrives, he observes another prostitute called Mandy Haley Bennett, who is also injured and in tears. She attempts to pour herself a cup of coffee, but it overflows. McCall comforts her and inquires about Alina's condition. As they ride the elevator, Mandy reveals that Slavy had hit Alina in retribution for her hitting him back, and that he had also thrown battery acid at another girl to make an example of her. He had similarly threatened other girls before. McCall examined the card that Slavy had given him, and subsequently went to a space above a restaurant where Slavy and his associates were congregating. He arrived with an envelope filled with $9,800, which was the price for Alina's freedom. Initially, the thugs found the offer amusing, but Slavy acknowledged that it would suffice to keep Alina for a month. McCall attempted to leave, but he eventually decided to stay and secured the door. He took a moment to scrutinize the men and their weapons, and then set his watch to a timer. One of the men pointed a gun at McCall, yet he swiftly grabbed the man's arm and caused him to shoot Slavy in the throat. He then jabbed a shot glass into the man's eye. McCall stabbed the third man, and then retrieved a corkscrew and relentlessly stabbed Tevi until the corkscrew was lodged under his chin, finishing him off. He went to Slavy's side and witnessed his gradual demise. After the heinous crimes occurred, Teddy, a Russian mobster played by Martin Scorsese, traveled to Boston to search for the perpetrator. He collaborated with a number of crooked law enforcement officers in order to get closer to the truth. McCall discovers that Rarfi has left his job when he finds out he is not present at work. He is informed that Rarfi has resigned. Upon visiting the restaurant where Rarfi's mother works, McCall finds out that Rarfi is there due to a fire that had allegedly occurred by chance. Teddy, taken by the crooked cop Frank Masters David Haba, is brought to the workplace of John Looney Sean Fitzgibbon to pursue the hunt for the murderer. John insults Teddy and all Russians in general, to which Teddy retaliates by striking John with an ashtray while Frank kills John's accomplices. Teddy then continues to pummel John's face until he becomes unconscious. McCall is observed engaging in a game of baseball with his colleagues. Rarfi arrives wearing a security guard uniform, having been successful on his exam. Remar Michael D. and Pedersen James Wilcox, the other two dirty cops, are eating at Rarfi's mother's restaurant, where they extort her for some money, warning of another accident if the payment isn't made on time. McCall finds them outside and says he'd like to report a crime, but they ignore him. When he calls one of them by name, McCall shows a video he took of them extorting a convenience store clerk and a confession to starting the fire at the restaurant. He tells them they can either repay the money or the video will be aired on the news. The cops draw their guns, but McCall quickly overpowers them, and they eventually return the money to Rarfie's mother. At Home Mart, a thief holds the cashier, Jenny Anastasia Moussis, at gunpoint and forces her to give him the money from the register. McCall stays collected and gives the robber the money. The robber also takes Jenny's ring, which belonged to her mother. Jenny sadly hands it to him. McCall remembers the robber's features, such as his tattoos and his cap. Children enter the store with their mother, so McCall doesn't make a move. He follows the robber outside and memorizes the license plate of his car. The police inform them that this is part of a series of robberies from the same individual. McCall then grabs a sledgehammer from a shelf. The following day, Jenny finds her ring in the register. McCall then wipes the hammer and puts it back on the shelf. Teddy acquires information about McCall, most of which seems to be harmless, with no evidence linking him to the death of Slavy. Along with Frank and another villain, they keep watch while one of their accomplices attempts to apprehend McCall at the diner. McCall, suspecting that the man has ill intentions, inquires if they are waiting for anyone else. The man brandishes a firearm and approaches him. Just as the man reaches him, a truck parks near the diner, obstructing Teddy and his associates' view. McCall swiftly defends himself by striking the man's abdomen with a book and ultimately killing him by slamming his head onto the table and breaking his neck. He then plunges the diner into darkness by plunging a knife into an electrical socket. McCall then exits the diner and snaps photographs of Teddy and his accomplices in their vehicle. The criminals tail McCall to his residence. He boils honey to treat an injury sustained from the encounter with the gunman. McCall cunningly evades detection and escapes before Teddy and his henchmen arrive. Observing them from another location, McCall monitors their movements through cameras that are discreetly placed in his apartment. Teddy is aware that he is being monitored. McCall visits his friends Brian and Susan Plummer, played by Bill Pullman and Melissa Leo. He knows that Susan has the capability to gather information about Teddy and his associates. While Susan is out gathering the information McCall requested, Brian informs McCall that everyone believed he was deceased, but Susan was aware of the truth. Upon her return, she informs McCall that the men he killed were part of the Russian mafia, led by Vladimir Pushkin, played by Vladimir Kulik. Teddy, whose real name is Nikolai, is the individual that Pushkin sends to handle important matters. Remar and Pedersen were on Pushkin's payroll, but were found dead a few days prior, with their testicles blown off and stuffed into their throats. Susan warns McCall that these individuals will not cease their pursuit until he and those he cares about are eliminated. McCall locates Frank and imprisons him in his vehicle, exposing him to carbon monoxide poisoning until he agrees to assist McCall. Frank reluctantly agrees and leads McCall to a warehouse where the Russian criminal organization keeps their funds. McCall successfully disarms the gangsters present and ties them up in a room, along with all of the money, for the police to apprehend them. He also frees the captive workers. Upon arrival, the police find the gangsters and the money and take Frank into custody. McCall then accesses Frank's safety deposit box, retrieving his money, passport, and a USB drive containing additional information about Pushkin's illegal activities. McCall locates Pushkin's oil tankers and proceeds to destroy them. Teddy and his accomplices take control of Home Mart and hold McCall's friends, including Rarfie and Jenny, hostage, threatening to harm them unless McCall comes to face them. They track McCall's cell phone, waiting for his arrival. When McCall does not appear, the gangsters nearly execute one of McCall's colleagues until music begins to play over the intercom. The villains venture out and are systematically hunted down by McCall as he moves stealthily through the building. He strangles one with barbed wire, stabs another through the neck, and kills another by causing an explosion in a room filled with hydrogen in a microwave. Rarfie attempts to aid McCall, but is shot in the leg. McCall assists Rarfie in his escape before being left to face Teddy after the explosion activates the sprinkler system. Armed with a nail gun, McCall shoots Teddy repeatedly, ultimately striking him in the throat, resulting in his death. 3 days later, McCall ambushes Pushkin in his Moscow residence while Pushkin is showering. McCall repeatedly turns the lights on and off and runs the sink water. Pushkin goes to the sink but finds that McCall has disappeared. Pushkin calls for his security personnel, not realizing that McCall has cut the wires and left them exposed. When the water comes into contact with the wires, Pushkin is electrocuted. Meanwhile, the other guards have already been killed. McCall goes back to Boston and is approached by Alina. Her bruise is gone. She informs him that she has acquired a genuine job and has commenced to read. She expresses her gratitude to McCall for his assistance. And before they part, she kisses him on the cheek. In the final scene depicts McCall back at the diner, working on his laptop. He receives a message requesting assistance. He simply responds, "Yes. Thank you for joining us into our review. We hope you had as much fun watching it as we did breaking it down for you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a video from us."